So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself. In Christian Healing, page 7, Mrs. Eddy says, "The new tongue is the spiritual meaning as opposed to the material. It is the language of soul." The language of the capitalized terms is really the new tongue, isn't it? It is the language of soul instead of the senses. It translates matter into its original language, which is mind, and gives the spiritual instead of the material signification. And in People's Idea of God, page 1, every step of progress is a step more spiritual. The great element of reform is not born of human wisdom. It draws not its life from human organizations. Rather is it the crumbling away of material elements from reason. Isn't that what the calculus is doing? Crumbling away the material elements from reason. It is the translation of law back to its original language, mind, and the final unity between man and God. All right, now I have put up on the overhead the hypothesis by itself. We want to focus in now, but you keep in mind that whole flow that we have taken between the two tables. The two tables are one now, are they not? They're one. It's just the one table. It's just the one table. Yeah. And so now we are going to focus in on the horizontals. And you see there that I have hinted to the J-index values as being reflections of absolute Christian Science. So that in the J-index, at the point of the word, where you have the creative basis, you see that we have also the capitalized terms life, truth, and love. At the point of the Christ, as the Christ selfhood, we have truth, life, and love, as though that whole value would hint at or would draw its own substance somehow from that law of truth, life, and love. That in the third, we have the Christianity tone as the pure demonstration. There you see the law, life and love. And finally, at the point of science, we have God being, the law, truth, and love. Let us flow through the horizontals and see if we can feel anything that encourages this, the understanding of this hypothesis within us. So I take with you the word horizontal, which has to do with the creative basis. And we see that every order has within it its own creative basis. Can we see, will we see, that every creative basis is somehow showing us that life, truth, and love is creatively at work, is present in every order. That the impulsion of life, truth, and love is present in every order, every one of the four orders, impelling the self-expression of that order, impelling that order to come forth and to be expressed. Therefore, in every creative order, we will see that it is not only creative, but logically creative, and that it has the goal-directedness built into it. Life, truth, and love. Yeah, can you feel that? Can you see that? That's what now absolute Christian Science is giving to every order, especially at the point of the Word. Word is Word. Christ is Word. Christianity is Word. Science as Word. That it is giving to every order right at its root, at its basis, the impulsion and the logic and the goal-directedness that is needed for that order to fully express itself and come to fulfillment. So, at the point of the Word as the Word, then, what did we see? We saw that everything begins with that basis of the bases. It's as though it's the core basis at this point of mind, spirit, and soul, saying that the whole matrix is rooted in one mind, in the fact that there is but one mind, in the allness of mind, that mind is all, that the infinite light of mind is breaking everywhere, that the infinite primordial self-conception is causing itself to be conceived, is breaking in, is coming in as inseparable from its own substance and nature as spirit, that mind is spirit, that mind is of no other quality than to be spirit, and therefore to have the somethingness of spirit, to be the good which spirit is, and that this is immutably changeless. This cannot be changed. This cannot be altered. This is the basis for the Word, the whole Word of God, the whole expression of the Word of God. And we go to the Christ as the Word, and we feel that there's an impulsion at work bringing in that whole Word, that whole Christ order now, and at the point of the Word there is a creative basis that within itself is alive, is working logically, has a logic within it, that it has a goal within it. You see that the basis of the Christ has the goal of the Christ built into it already. And so at that point we had principle, life, truth, and love, showing us that the one principle which is impelling its own idea forth, impelling the translation of itself to the point of mind at the conclusion of that order, that principle is within itself life, truth, and love, that it is already self-manifested, that it is already self-conscious as truth, already self-fulfilled as love, and that this is the creative basis. This has the whole drive of life, truth, and love excuse me, within it. It has the whole success built into it. That's where the success is, and it has its own success mechanism to achieve itself as what it is, as that whole order of the Christ. And if we go to Christianity as the word, the creative basis of Christianity, we see that we have principle, mind, soul, spirit, showing us that principle, shorthand for the word, and mind, shorthand for the Christ, that the word and the Christ really are rendering every idea identical with its principle and as being a reflection of its principle, so that every idea has the relationship with its principle of being identified exactly with it, of having everything that its principle has, and of reflecting its principle, therefore reflecting itself and reflecting every other idea. This is a creative basis of Christianity that holds within itself the impulsion to bring forth the whole of that order. It contains within itself the logic for the whole order, the goal-directedness for the whole order. When we come to science as the word, we see that we have there that science is life, soul and life, the numerals of infinity, the identities of being. And in those identities of being are everything that is needed for the full interpretation of the principle. The full interpretation of the principle as the creative basis. And life, truth, and love says, I am right in those initial elements. I am present in those initial elements, so that I am impelling that creative basis. I am the logic within that creative basis. I am the goal-directedness within that creative basis that will carry the whole order, that will take the whole order through to its conclusion at the point of principle. I'm impelling that, you see. Let's go back to now the Christ horizontal. And if we look at the Christ horizontal, we can see that every appearing of the Christ selfhood is the working of and the presence of that law of truth, life, and love. Meaning what? That it is truth, life, and love that takes the ideal of the creative basis. It takes the creative basis as its ideal and is individualizing that to perfect adaptation, to perfect individualization. It's individualizing it. You hear that truth is saying, all right, that creative basis, be it the creative basis of the Word, of the Christ, of Christianity, of science, that's the ideal that I, the Christ, take. That's what I'm going to work with. And I individualize that specifically. I individualize that. That's life, huh? Truth, life, the individualizing. And love says in every individualization of that creative basis is perfectly adapted, has the perfection of love, has the purpose of love within it. It's the law, really, of the selection principle. It's the law of specification. It's the law of individualization. So at this point, you could go back to culture yourself in. Now, let me see, what is the law of, you see, the law of the Christ, you see, truth, life, and love, and culture yourself in that. Truth, yes. Oh, it's the ideal of being. All right. The ideal of being. And at the point of life, the individual truth, the individualizing of that ideal. And love, the adaptability, that law adapts so that you don't just get any individualization of the ideal. That's not the Christ, is it? The Christ is specific. The Christ is that which translates from principle to specific idea, to individual idea. That individual idea has the touch of love to it, that it's the right one, the correct one, the one with purpose in it, the one with plan in it, the one that you need, the one that is needed, you see. That's the love touch in it, isn't it? This goes right through the Christ selfhood, horizontal, right through there. You remember in every single case we had the taking of the idealness of the creative basis and the individualizing it. I would always say, and the Christ recalculates that or restructures that or turns that around or rearranges that, you see. This is the individualizing of it. And the individualizing of it, not just in a haphazard way, not just in any old way with no love behind it, with no purpose behind it, but specifically adapted by love to be the perfect, you see, individual representative of that creative basis. And the Christ does that infinitely. Well, I leave this to you now. You see that how you can go to your study aid and to pages, let me see, 80, is that 83? And I think 84, where you have those values for the laws on the level of absolute Christian Science. Okay.